Hi everyone, in today's lesson we're going to address the question, how has the Clean Air Act impacted the environment? First though, what is the Clean Air Act? It's legislation written to prevent air pollution. It was actually passed unanimously in the Senate in 1970, and at the same time the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or US EPA, was created, and they would carry out the act. The Clean Air Act requires the EPA to set national ambient air quality standards for specific pollutants in order to safeguard human health and environmental health. The EPA has established standards for 6 common air pollutants, also known as criteria pollutants. These include carbon monoxide, lead, nitrogen dioxide, ozone, particulate matter, and sulfur dioxide. The EPA enforces the Clean Air Act and also regulates sources of air pollution, including industries and vehicles. To meet the national ambient air quality standards, it's up to states to develop state implementation plans which regulate industrial sources of pollutants. So most people recognize the Clean Air Act as being passed in 1970, but I wanted to take a look at the full timeline and show you what has come before and after that date. So in 1955, the Air Pollution Control Act was put in place, and this was the first legislation on air pollution. Then in 1963, the original Clean Air Act was enacted. It initiated funding for research on the remediation of air pollution. In 1970, the US EPA was created alongside the passage of the 1970 Clean Air Act. This included significant amendments to the original act from 1963. Then in 1990, amendments were made to the 1970 Act, and that addressed acid rain and also included a plan to phase out ozone-depleting chemicals. So now let's look at what's happening in 2018. The 6 criteria pollutants that were discussed earlier have decreased tremendously. You can see on this graph, most are well below the most recent national standard. Carbon monoxide's decreased by 77%, lead by 80%, nitrogen dioxide by 56%, ozone by 22%, particulate matter by 38%, and sulfur dioxide by 88%. And according to the US EPA, aggregate emissions of these 6 have decreased overall by 73% since the original act was passed in 1970. What does less air pollution mean for the environment? Well, it means fewer impacts to ecosystems, less damage to their health, including plants and animals. There's a reduced amount of deterioration to soil nutrients and less soil contamination. This means less nitrogen entering waterways, which depletes oxygen and is harmful to aquatic life. And then fewer toxins accumulate in the food chain. There's decreased fine particle pollution, which has led to improved visibility across landscapes. As you can see in the picture of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a good visibility day versus a bad visibility day. And even economic benefits are felt from positive impacts to the environment, as crop and timber yields increase with less air pollution. Thank you for listening, and please let me know if you have any questions.